We don't need roads.
Need some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end.
Ka-chow.
Check those seat cars! And where's the largest button?
Always remember, you ain't first, last. 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Car Podcast, recording at you live from the UK. The movie's all over the place.
What?
Hockenheim is
Japan.
There's Japan. There's the Hungar Ring. There's the Red Bull Ring, which was Austria.
What is
They went to Dubai for a little bit.
Yeah, but which is like the really dangerous track?
Le Mans, which is France.
No, but then the other one though, the Nuremberg Ring.
Oh, that's Germany.
That's Germany. Okay.
So it's all over the place.
it
We're
is.
talking Gran
Okay.
Turismo. The 2023 movie. We're gonna do away with the 10-minute spoiler thing.
We're gonna spoil it right away. So
So if you clicked on the video or you clicked on the podcast, you probably already watched it. Go watch the movie if you haven't.
Yeah.
Here's your one and done warning.
Yep.
So it just came. It came out in 2023.
Did it?
It was a 2023 movie, but it just came to Netflix last month.
Yeah.
And I'll share my little story of how I got into this.
Good.
Because I went to Arizona for vacation.
Yes.
Night one, I get a sore throat. And my girlfriend is like, oh, it's the desert air, it's the dry air. And I'm like, sure, I'm not used to it. Wake up the next morning, it was like swallowing glass.
Yes.
So I woke her up and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the immediate care.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to drive our rental Chevy Equinox to the immediate care.
Yeah.
I got all checked out and stuff. Turned out I had RSV, which you got
Which I
like
had
2 days beforehand.
Exactly.
So
Which, I don't know. The jury's out on that and what happened and all that.
I don't know how I would have gotten it from you because we didn't really interact all that much.
No,
except
we
we
sat
sat across from each other at dinner.
Once.
night
I mean, that
before,
was like once, but that was so random. Yeah, we don't really see each other much. But yeah, that was so weird because we did get it about the same time. And all the thing was that was really bad.
Yeah, so I was in Arizona for 2 days, completely out of my mind, hopped up on painkillers and cough medicine. Get to the airport like 4 hours before our flight because we had to return the rental car at 1, but our flight was at like 3:30, which got delayed because of the weather back home.
Nice.
All that stuff. So we finally get on to the flight, and they have Gran Turismo as one of the movies that you can watch. And so I had been putting this movie off ever since it came out. I didn't want to see it in the theater. I had no want or desire to watch this movie.
Neither did I, but okay.
But I was like, I have a
Interesting for you.
4-hour flight.
Yeah.
I'm on pain meds and cold medicine. I was miserable. I was everything was coming out of every orifice.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll watch this movie. It's like 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah, it's 2 hours long.
I ended up really liking it.
So you're in a great psychological state to watch this movie.
So I will say, I started rewatching it again today in preparation of this podcast.
Oh, okay.
Liked it a little less. But
Really?
on my first watch through, I think they did it. I had such low expectations that I think the movie was actually done as well as a video game car movie can be done.
Yes.
I think.
Okay.
So I think it's a really tricky area.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions?
Well, number one, it was better than Rush.
Yeah,
and I'm talking to you, Richie Cunningham, because Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Better than Rush. I actually enjoyed it. I have to say that I was kicking and screaming not to watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't want to watch it, and I didn't realize that it was based on a true story, and it wasn't like I was expecting it to be.
A guy played a video game once, and then they made the whole movie.
Well,
Because that's what a lot of like based on a true story is like so loose.
Right. But more like the Need for Speed, where it was like the video game, and then they make it into a movie, and then you're like, yeah, this is not good.
I was just gonna say they should make a Need for Speed movie. They did, and we did an episode about it.
I think we did, didn't we?
But that's a good example because that movie Need for Speed, starring Aaron Paul, had no tie-in to any of the games. It had no similarities really besides the title.
Yeah.
This had so many similarities. They pulled elements directly out of the game, which was really cool.
Yeah.
The start noise when each race would start is so synonymous with older racing games. That that belch, the dun, 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 like that was like, I mean, that is the, which I don't know if is a real start sound.
I don't know.
For races. I've never heard it actually, but that was cool.
So to me, it was that whole idea of, I thought it was going to be one of those like Need for Speed movies. Wasn't Michael Keaton in Need for Speed or something? Wasn't he? Like
yes, but remember all of his shots were filmed in one room.
I know.
It was probably just one day of filming.
Right.
It probably in his home office with a green screen for the window.
Paid him $1 million.
Probably, yeah.
So, yes, that's what I thought it was going to be. And then I was happily surprised. So let's just put it that way. I was happily surprised. I was really confused at the beginning. I thought it was really choppy at the beginning of the movie. I was all over the place, like, what the heck's going on? I don't understand what this is. I don't get it. The guy who was working for Nissan.
Yeah. That's how the rest of the world pronounces it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then we're totally wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, he just seemed like so rough and weird. It was like he was changing his shirt in the limo, and it was like this whole crazy
Orlando
thing.
Bloom's character.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, and I don't get. And then we see this kid, and I was like, wasn't Orlando Bloom the father?
No, Orlando Bloom was the Nissan representative.
Oh, okay.
That was pitching the idea. He had like longer hair.
I've seen that other guy, or I saw the father in like other movies. He's been in a bunch of other movies.
And
he's
funny
really,
enough,
really
the
cool
mother,
who
I couldn't place the entire movie until the end credit sequence, she is Jiri Horner, who is married to Christian Horner, who is the Red Bull team principal for Formula One, who's in a lot of hot water right now for sexual assault accusations and stuff, which ain't great. Which I think the verdict is actually coming out while we're making this podcast.
Oh, okay, all right.
But she was Ginger Spice from the Spice Girls.
No way.
That was Ginger Spice.
No way.
But she's married to the Formula One team principal of Red Bull.
Okay.
So that was cool. And then Will Buxton did some of the race commentary.
Okay.
Will Buxton is a Formula One journalist, and he's all over Drive to Survive.
All right.
He's like the face of Drive to Survive on Netflix.
Yeah.
So I thought those were cool cameos.
Yeah, I mean, and they did some, they did a really nice blend of video game world and the real racing world, and the fact of how you could visualize. He was visualizing the game, and so they switch back and forth between the game and him and the actual car, and you know the what do they call it, the path or the lane or something like that. It's when he sees that. So if there's one word that like says it's commit. Yeah. They said that word commit like 50,000 times.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah.
I just based off what you said, blending.
Yes.
Some of the camera angles were really, really cool because they did that like really close follow camera angle, which is synonymous with video games.
Yeah.
But it was hard to tell sometimes. So some of the cars in the movie were CGI.
Were they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Some of them weren't. The crash was CGI,
which
we'll talk about in a second.
That was amazing though. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But it was cool because you can always tell in the reflections. The reflections is always how I can tell the CGI at least. And you'd see this camera angle up behind the car. Yeah. And then you're like looking at the reflections on the car and you're like, oh, this is a real camera angle with the pole painted out, which was cool.
Oh, okay.
It reminded me a lot of the Initial D camera angles.
Well, that's what you do now.
Well, and on a very small scale.
It's like, but that's really cool.
But it was cool to see those camera angles, and then some of the actual graphics pulled from the game, and you
Sure.
like the driver's standings
Yes.
was pulled right
Yes.
from the video
Was it
game.
really?
Yeah, which
Okay.
is super cool.
That
And like
was
I
cool
said,
how
the
they did it.
sounds.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo, I have to say, I got off the plane,
Yeah.
landed here.
Yeah.
I wanted to buy a PlayStation and buy
I
Gran
know.
Turismo.
So what is that? Was that on PlayStation?
So it was PlayStation only.
Oh.
It's a PlayStation only game. So
and do they still make it?
yeah, they just came out with Gran Turismo 7, I think.
Oh, okay.
So it's started by this guy. I cannot pronounce his name. He's a Japanese gentleman. His
Yeah.
last name's Yamaguchi.
Yeah.
I cannot pronounce his first name, which he makes a cameo in the movie as the sushi chef in Tokyo, which is always cool to see.
Wow.
He is like the biggest car nerd
Yeah.
on the history of the planet. So he developed the Gran Turismo games to be like the most accurate you can do.
So that's real, right? That it's a simulator, right?
It's not like it's not like a perfect simulator.
Okay.
Like there are games that will like simulate tire pressures better and like you know G-forces and different suspensions. Assetto Corsa is a like more of a simulation type game.
Assetto Corsa?
Assetto Corsa is it's a driving game.
Okay.
Not great graphics, but it's really like truly
8-bit graphics.
well, like you could torque lug nuts different ways, and so like it's like real stuff.
Jeez. Okay. All right.
But basically, Yamaguchi made this game, and it offers so many cars. It's developed in Japan, so like it was a lot of like that was the first time a lot of people got to see like Japanese cars here in the States, like the Toyota Sera, which was a little tiny car that had gull-wing doors. Like no one had seen those, or the Daihatsu Midgets, which are what is it? It's like it's a 660cc engine, but it's like a 40 horsepower pickup truck from Japan. But you could race them in the game, but we never got them here in the States. So they have a reason I would want to pick up the game. They have my Mazda 3 in the game.
Oh, you're kidding.
Which like they don't have in other games. Anyway, it was cool to see that attention to detail brought into the movie as well.
There was a ton of detail.
Yeah.
I have to say that there was a ton, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate one of the things that they did as far as the movie makers. There was interesting callbacks in the movie that between real life and the racing and all of that, that I don't know if you caught, but like when he first takes his dad's car out and the mirror gets smashed off of the car, later on when he's racing and the side mirror gets smashed off of the car, and they show it almost the same side-by-side clip.
I did not pick up on that.
So when I saw that, I was like, that's pretty cool, because he was kind of racing his dad's car, and then he was racing this car, and
which
he got
I believe was a
mirror.
Volkswagen Corrado, which is funny because the rival franchise to Gran Turismo is a game called Forza. And that's what we always had growing up.
You always had Forza.
We always had Xbox. That was there, which was
I forbade you.
No, it's just like there was no point in buying two $500 game systems, so we always grew up Xbox. But Forza has always been more arcadey. It's like you can upgrade the pistons in an RX-7. Like it's not like it's
okay.
Right. It's not right because RX-7s don't have pistons.
Right,
it's
I was gonna say
the
that.
attention to detail is a lot lower. But
Okay.
what I thought was funny is that there's a game called Forza Horizon.
Yeah.
And you get 3 starter cars, and one of the starter cars you can pick is a Volkswagen Corrado.
Oh.
So it's funny how in this movie,
yeah,
his starter car
yeah.
is a Volkswagen Corrado, which is the starter car of the rival franchise.
Okay.
I doubt that was planned.
I don't know, because they were pretty close. They paid a lot of attention to detail. And the other thing that I don't know if you noticed is at the beginning of the movie, when he got his new steering wheel and he was unpacking it, he takes the steering wheel and plugs it in.
Yeah.
He plugs it in, and then later in the movie, when he's in the actual race car, he plugs in the wheel in the race car just like you would in a real race car. So I thought that was a cool callback too that you don't really catch.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that.
But it was those are just things that I was watching and I was like, oh, that's a pretty neat little thing. I don't know why I caught onto those things, but yeah. And I was, the storyline itself, it was the typical, oh yeah, I don't like you at all, and then halfway through the movie, he's like, well, I'm going to be a little bit cooler to you.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the name of the character.
It was a little predictable.
Yeah.
And it was long.
It was very long.
I think personally, this should have been like a Netflix mini series or something.
Yeah, it could have been.
Because then you could see do a whole episode of the family struggles in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
Do a whole 1 or 2 or even 3 episodes of the GT Academy.
Yeah.
Episode of getting the license. Like it felt like
that's
they
true.
were on that cusp of either making it way longer and way more in depth.
Yeah.
Or cutting a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
And they just did like a weird middle ground of like, what was it, 2:15? It's a long movie.
It was a long movie. I think
it was well over 2 hours.
A little over 2 hours, yeah. But the thing is and I agree. Like you could have done a whole show at least on the Academy. You could have done one on getting the license. I was actually that was kind of fun that they teased out the license until the last race and stuff. Because I thought, oh yeah, he's going to come in 4th or 3rd or something, and
which is a really cool part about the Gran Turismo games.
Yeah,
is that in order to race a classification of car, you have to go through like lessons and you have to get a license per class of car, which like quite literally there's like cones in a parking lot and you have to like maneuver certain cars through a course of cones, and it's like some of the most infuriating levels because you're like, I just want to race cars around a track, and it's literally like do, and you have to like go through the cones and stop in the box. But
wow,
I think that's why Gran Turismo actually garners better drivers, where in Forza, if you go online, Forza lobbies are like, they're hell. It's just people slamming into each other, not braking in the first corner, and just launching people off the track. Like,
and that would have been me if I was in this movie.
Well, like, we always joke like merging onto like merging onto 294 is like a Forza lobby where it's every man for themselves, and just you're just banging doors off of people and like trying to survive corner one.
That is true. We live in an area where that is like the most crazy, dangerous merge ever.
Yeah.
And it is nuts. Like it is psycho nuts. You're right. Everybody's out.
So that's the nice thing about Gran Turismo, is that it really is like teaching you driving and basics, and like if you want to race the big cars, you have to get a license for that before you can even race those cars. So I thought that was cool. They did talk about him getting his. No, it wasn't a super license. I think it was just his racing license.
Yeah, they said it was like an F license or something. I don't know what it wasn't. F1, obviously.
No, FIA, which is the
FIA. Okay, FIA license.
International Federation of Automobile Sports.
Okay.
They basically overlook all automotive sports, or most automotive. They don't overlook like NASCAR and stuff, but like rallying in Europe, Formula One. That's like the governing body. So. Which I didn't even realize. There's like an outside group that like determines the rules for all this stuff.
Oh, okay.
And you have to get a super license in order to participate in Formula One, and you have to pay for your super license every year, which is like sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars just to maintain your license, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that it wasn't straight to the top either.
Right. Yes. Right.
Two things kind of annoyed me about the movie.
Yeah.
One, there were 2 different villains at times, because there's the
true.
GT Academy villain, who ended up coming back, which I thought was a cool touch.
Which I did think that was a nice touch. I thought that was cool.
And then like the pretty boy Lamborghini racer, who has a gold car?
Well, okay,
like, that was just like
I do want to talk about those. I want to talk about the gold LeMay. He calls it the gold LeMay. What is that guy's character? He's the coach. He's the guy's mentor. He's the.
Well, it's David Harbour.
Yeah, David Harbour, but I can't remember the character's name.
I forget his name too.
We're just gonna call him Dave.
Hopper.
Hopper. Let's just call him Hopper. Actually, that's what we know him as. So Hopper basically says, "Oh yeah, don't mind that gold LeMay piece of crap over there, right?" So. Here's a trick that they do in screenwriting. They teach you this, that in order to make something stand out and in order to give callbacks so that people watching will know, you give, it's not, there's a guy who wrote a book called Save the Cat, basically, and one of the things he says is give the character an eye patch and a limp. So what it means is you give them something that you can physically see and call back. So having a bright gold car, absolutely easy to see. The other one is the rainbow guy. Remember, he talks about the rainbow guy who's got the rainbow colors.
Oh, right.
And he's the other one of the other bad guys.
Yeah.
They don't get into him much. I think he's German. And again, it's the rainbow colors.
Good. His rainbow has so many colors. That's my German impression. Thank you.
I'm not going to do it. But anyway, yeah, so you have those two, and they were very easy to spot.
Yeah.
So you knew, all right, that's the bad guy in the gold car. That's the bad guy in the rainbow. They're very different kinds of things, but it's a limp and an eye patch. It is something to visually allow you to make that connection as a viewer to easily do it, because sometimes the characters look the same and act the same. It's hard to pick them out, and you always have to have some form of conflict.
Right.
So they had to have, along the way, they had to have the pushback. Like when he was just starting out, his dad was pushing back, saying, "Oh, you need to get a real job and everything." Which, by the way, I think this movie just points out, all you should do is play video games. Like that is the goal in life.
Yeah.
You should play video games. Obviously.
Yeah.
Because look what it works out.
Yeah.
So so there you go.
Which we'll talk about the parents' pushback a little bit later on. The second thing that kind of annoyed me, I guess it didn't really annoy me, but the whole relationship portion where he's like interested in this girl.
Oh, really? That annoyed you?
I just found it like, I feel like it didn't really add anything to the story, and it just seemed like they were like just falling into this like, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just
the
like
trope.
The trope of like, oh, they can't be together.
Yeah.
Oh, now they are together. It like I feel like the movie was already so long.
Yeah.
That they could have done without that part.
Yes.
But
so
I don't know. I felt like they should have focused more on the relationship of the parents and the son instead of throwing this new relationship into it.
I get that. I wasn't nearly as annoyed with that as you were. I kind of liked that because it was a little bit different than the stereotypical, oh, we can't be together. There's so much drama and this romantic thing that they throw in. Now, the other thing I like is that they didn't make her like some supermodel. They made her very plain. They had a plain. The actress who played her was very plain, which I think was great because that was more realistic. It wasn't like who's the one in Transformers? Like
Megan Fox.
Yeah,
who I always hated growing up.
Yeah,
all my friends had crushes on her.
I know
hate
you
Megan
did.
Fox.
So,
and I know she's listening. I hate you, Megan Fox. You and your dumb boyfriend, Machine Gun Kelly.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Okay,
Don't worry about it.
So, I just thought that was much more realistic, and I thought that it was nice because they didn't have a ton of difficulties in their relationship because there was so much other drama in the movie that was going on. So, yeah, if you're going to have him have some romance, it was nice that it wasn't so, like, oh, so stressful and difficult and, they're on again, off again and all that. So that was okay. And I understand what you're saying, too, about they actually could have left that out and you probably would have been fine.
I don't think I had an issue with the relationship in the movie. It was just that the movie was so long.
You don't like anyone to be together. That's it.
Well, here's the thing. I don't like women. Let's just get it out there. I hate women.
Wow. Okay.
I just felt like the movie...
By the way, that's not true. I just want to let everyone know it's not true. Anyway, yeah?
It's partially true. It's partially true.
Yeah?
I'm just scared to talk to them. I watched it on the plane. I was in a very sick state. I checked the time once, and I was like, all right, it's probably close to the end.
Yeah.
And I had 51 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I just remember going, oh.
It's funny. I checked the time, too.
Yeah.
I checked the time only because I wanted to see at the halfway point where they were at in the story, because usually at the halfway point there is some major turn.
Right.
And that's actually, I think, where he gets his license.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? It might be when he actually gets out of the academy. I'm not sure if it's.
No, I think it's his license because I was just
okay.
rewatching it now.
Okay.
And I hit pause to come down here as he was getting his license.
Yeah.
And it was an hour and 5 minutes left.
Yeah, it was. And it was when I looked at that and I was like, oh crap, because I remember watching it and it was a night that I didn't really have a ton of time. Yeah. And I was like, oh shoot, I don't know, I had a lot of work to do. So that was kind of difficult to spend that much time. But that was obviously an interesting halfway point. It's also about the time, obviously, that Hopper is making, he's becoming more of a friendly person.
Right, yeah.
He's making that turn.
I thought his acting was amazing. I thought David Harbour killed it.
I think so too. I think he did an awesome job. You could see you could see emotionally where his character was at. Yeah. You could see really a lot of,
I think some of the other downsides of the movie were the dialogue at points.
Yeah.
Because, there were times where I was like, no one in a car scenario would say something like that.
Right.
But you have to remember, and I'm just more saying this as a PSA than anything else, of just...
the more you know.
Well, with a giant movie... Yeah. Not everyone who's involved in the movie is into cars.
Correct.
The screenwriters probably thought that this was an amazing idea, and it was. It's a great idea. Yeah. But they probably don't know. Like if we were tasked with making a movie about the medical field, I could definitely write a line of give him 50 cc's of whatever. But I don't know when that would be used, and I don't know exactly. I can kind of toss the verbiage together.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that it's one of those scenarios where there's a couple times where I was like, all right, that doesn't completely make sense, or in a car sense, no one would say that.
Okay.
But at the same, first of all, way better than Fast and Furious has ever done. At least these writers, these writers have seen a car before. Literally, it's funny because if you look at the old Fast and Furious movies, it's almost like they were written by early AI. You just threw a bunch of car vocab and they strung it together.
Yeah. Okay.
There were just some points where it was like the dinner scene where Hopper's talking to the pretty boy racer guy.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And he's like, you're carrying a little, you're not carrying enough speed into turn 4.
Yeah.
It was just like that. It was very clunky confrontation, and I get that the screenwriters were trying to show that he has all this experience and that this guy's going to write him off. I understand that, but I was like, it was just kind of clunky. And you wouldn't.
You're right. I get you. I get you. And you're absolutely right in the fact that they had to create a scenario where he had to have a reason for being like, screw this, forget this. I'm out of here. This guy's a jerk. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. And that's kind of what he says when he goes out and he's like, okay, I'm in on this. So, they had to create something like that. But I agree. If they would have had something where it was more of a true, he makes a comment, maybe it wasn't as, maybe they wouldn't have something as clunky as, oh, you push a little hard and turn 4, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it was something else that would have been enough to make the kid angry.
Yeah.
And but I get you in that.
Some of the dialogue just seemed a little clunky. But on the flip side, what I loved was that during the GT Academy scenes, they're like, oh, Orlando Bloom's character is like, oh, get in the helicopter. We're going to judge him off the helicopter.
Right.
And Hopper was like, I would never judge him because that's true. You would never fly in a helicopter.
That's so true.
It's so dangerous.
It's so true.
And
it's
B,
absolutely true.
The cars are going to fly by. You're going to see them together for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The best way would be looking at a timing screen and seeing split times and sector times, and so that was really cool. Where he was like, "I'm not doing this because I wouldn't actually do that."
Yes, and so here's the thing. I think that actually was a brilliant move on their part, is you have the two of them together and he's like, I'm not getting in the helicopter, but the other guy, the Nissan guy, is saying, but it's a cool media thing, it would look cool for us, and so that gave it the reason to do it. And and then they smash cut to him in the helicopter,
Yeah.
which is perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, he's forced to do this, and it's so stupid, and he tells you this is stupid. And it's another trick too that screenwriters do, which is if there's something that's pretty obvious, sometimes the best thing to do is to actually say the most obvious thing, like, I would never do this.
Yeah.
And then you smash cut to them doing it.
Well, it reminds me, I'm currently watching the new season of Drive to Survive, season 6, the Formula One.
I lost it in the middle of like 2 or 3.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But
So-
it's funny because they're interviewing the McLaren drivers, and there's a
Yeah.
rookie, Oscar Piastri, and I forget what he's doing in the show. But then he like looks at the Netflix cameras, and he's like, oh, so what are you going to cut to the race day next? And then it's just hard cut, and it just says race day, and it's like the helicopter shot over Bahrain.
That's great.
It's great. It's
great.
hilarious.
That is perfect. I love that. I'm glad they did.
So like
think
stuff
that's
like
great.
it reminded me of that scene.
I think stuff like that is great. I love when filmmakers do that because it's almost like a wink, like, yeah, wink, wink, nod.
Yeah.
Now we're going to totally do exactly what you expect to have happen.
Yeah.
And that's always fun. That's kind of a nice little, an aside or wink or tip of the hat or whatever. So, yeah, I think that was a very cool thing for him to do because you're right. It's so dangerous. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way you would do
You would not do that.
You know, anyway.
Getting into the later parts of the
Yeah.
movie, the crash,
Yeah.
which was a real crash.
It
That all
was.
happened, and there was a spectator that actually was killed.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, which is crazy. And I think visually, because that was the real crash, the car lifted up and all that
Yes,
stuff. That
right.
actually happens, and I think visually they took a lot of reference from, I want to say it was like 2002, 2003, something like that. Mark Webber, who later went on to race in Formula One for Red Bull Racing, whose team principal was married to the actress who played the mom. It's all
Okay, so
connected.
that's all connected.
He was driving, I think it was a CLK Mercedes on the Nürburgring,
Yeah.
and came over the hill. And because a lot of race cars at the time were starting to do flat bottoms,
Yeah.
like where you just carbon fiber or aluminum just make the complete bottom of the car flat.
Yeah.
If you hit a hill right, it acts as a plane wing
Sure.
and just creates lift. And this Mercedes flew, I think it was like 2 or 3 stories up into the air and did a backflip and landed on its.
Jeez.
I mean, it was horrible crash. Guy was okay. Ended up later driving in Formula One and all that stuff. But just visually, it reminded me a lot of that too, which was cool to see that.
Yeah, I heard that he caught air and then he was like 2 countries away. He landed like
Just
2
kept
countries.
flying?
He just kept flying.
Yeah.
They served him peanuts in the middle of the flight. It was amazing. So-
But it was a real crash, and it was cool that they included that in the movie.
Was that actual footage or what was? I mean, was that recreated? How did they do
I
that?
believe that in the movie was CGI.
Okay.
But
It was amazing.
so-
I remember seeing that though. I
Yeah.
remember that.
yeah.
So,
Well,
okay.
at least the Mercedes footage. So this actually happened,
Okay.
I believe, in it was early 2010s, I think, because
Okay.
the whole movie's based off of Jan. I forget his last name.
Yeah.
They used the guy's real name. This was like a follow
Right.
for follow story of
Yeah.
this guy's life.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into later on. I have some trivia about. But he actually did crash. Part of it did kill a spectator, a
Yeah,
49-year-old from, I think it was Sweden.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
So it was cool that they left that in there and actually did it as part of the movie, and you got to see it and stuff. But the CLK picking up, that went around the website of like funnyjunk.com. Do you remember Funny Junk?
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, I do.
That
yeah.
was like early internet, a little bit after E-Bomb's World. It just went around all of these like pages and sites, and like early YouTube we used to watch crash compilations. And
Oh,
whatnot, and
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
was
it
always
was-
in there.
Yeah. That was,
I
that
mean, it was the
one of
most
big things.
visually stunning crash.
It was.
probably ever.
Yeah.
Because you see a Mercedes race car literally fly straight up
Yep.
into the air
Yeah.
like it was supposed to do that.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
most certainly wasn't.
Yeah, totally crazy. That was
so-
totally crazy. And
Yeah.
and
But
it was.
That was an interesting part of the movie. I did really like the fact where he was like, you have to finish the lap. Or
Yes.
You're never, ever going
Yes.
to be able to get over it.
So immediately, I don't know why, I'm totally scarred. Talladega Nights. I thought about that, and I was
Which
like,
part of it?
where he gets into the accident, into
and
that
then they
big
run to the
accident,
finish line.
and he gets into the accident, and then he's like, he doesn't want to get in the car, and he's going super slow.
Yeah.
And that's what it reminded me
He's
of.
running around in his underwear. Help me, Tom Cruise. Help me, Oprah.
I'm on fire.
Yeah.
But what that reminded me of, and that made me think, okay, Talladega Nights was actually much more accurate than I give him credit for. But no, it was really, I agree that forcing him to do that was a good thing, and to be able to say.
It was also interesting. I don't know how much leverage or pull Nissan had in this movie.
Yeah,
but he picks him up in a 911 GT2 RS, a Porsche, and they finish the lap in a Porsche. And I'm like, why wouldn't Hopper's character drive a GTR?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It was just like a weird.
Like, I thought, it's a good question. I thought
this was going to be such a heavily Nissan movie, and then he shows up in a Porsche, and I was like, oh, hell yeah! That thing was sick.
No, it was. That was such a cool car.
Yeah.
But
I drove the one step down of that car, the GT3
really?
RS,
Jeez.
which is like the highest performance road going one. Once you get to the GT2, there's no interior. It's insane. But But yeah, I mean, those cars are bonkers, and it was cool to see him pull up, and like that car dominated the Nürburgring in real life. Like it set so many records and stuff. So to see him pull up in that, I was like, oh, this guy, like. A guy who would be into cars definitely would be driving something like that if he had the money, which that's like close to, I think, $300,000 Porsche.
All right, by two or three. Yeah.
But like, how rich is David Harbour's character? I thought he was like a lowly mechanic.
Yeah, and he probably is, and who knows where he got the car from.
Yeah, I mean, but it was just cool to see. That was kind of like an enthusiast nod of like, oh, someone who knows the Nürburgring would definitely drive one of those.
Yeah, it could have been someone else from the team or something who said, you know what, take him out and here's a car, take my car, whatever.
Yeah,
and
I
go
would
out.
have loved to see if he gets out of the car and then David Harbour's character walks up to a Kia Forte and goes, "Hey Chad, thanks for letting me borrow the GT2 RS. Here's my Forte GT line."
Blip, blip. He's got the little key thing. Blip, blip.
Yeah.
And open. Yeah, the Kia Forte. Yeah.
But I thought the crash. I liked the sort of like psychological side of the movie of like getting past that.
Yes.
And like, oh, like my actions can affect things.
Yeah.
I read online that actually that crash happened after Jan drove at Le Mans in real life.
Oh, really?
They just put it in the movie beforehand to sort of build tension and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And so that makes a lot of sense that they switched it around that way. And that's why movies like this especially would say based on a true story. Because a lot of times people are like, "Oh, well, that's not really what happened." But when you have a drama and it's based on real life, it's called based on it.
Yeah, you need to fudge the numbers.
It's not a documentary.
Yeah.
You have to remember that it's not a documentary.
And it would have been so confusing if they did the 24-hour Le Mans and then randomly tacked on at the end, like, oh yeah, he crashed and suffered psychologically for a while.
Right.
Anyway, roll credits. Like,
right, exactly.
It wouldn't have really. And I guess the driver himself, who this is based around, like specifically wanted the crash in the movie.
Okay.
He said it was like a very important part of his, upcoming or upbringing. So.
And I'm sure, and I also like Hopper's character when he said, "Someone died because racing is dangerous."
Right.
And it's true. I mean, and so.
And they did foreshadow that early on. He's like, you could kill yourself, or worse, you could kill someone else.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was a cool and interesting thing.
Yeah, it was. It was, and I think it was nice to. I mean, a lot of the stuff was really pretty realistic. Like when he goes and talks to the Nissan high up CEOs and things like that, and he's in this. The guy's in the middle of this auditorium. There's only a couple guys in there. They all have translators. This woman is translating both in English and Japanese. Yeah. And there's the going back and forth, and they didn't make them the stereotypical like, ooh, we don't like you, and all this. It was kind of like, okay, they were more like real true businessmen. They were kind of thinking about it, and they're like, oh, because a lot of times when you go into meetings, it's not like they stand up and cheer and go, yeah, that's great, we're going to do it. They just sit there and go, okay, well, let's think about that.
Yeah.
And it was more realistic then.
And it was interesting, too, while, like, when I watched it the first time on the flight back from Arizona, I was currently in talks with Nissan press people for press cars and for my day job and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like, I had just met everyone and all that stuff. So, like, I was like, oh, like, this is kind of like a guy, Steve, that I know and all this stuff.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's funny.
I actually kind of know these PR reps now.
Yeah, no, it's
and
cool.
they really nailed, like, how they talk. And,
really?
Like,
Yeah.
they're enthusiastic about the new thing. And, like, sometimes you're not, but, like, it's, you got to sit through them cheering about something they're super passionate about.
Yeah.
So I like that. The only thing I didn't like about that whole scene,
mm-hmm.
and I don't have any hard evidence, but I think the cars, when he walked out into the lobby of Nissan, they had, like, old Datsuns and, like, Fair Lady Zs in the background.
Oh, yeah?
I'm pretty sure those were video game assets that were added in later. Because
really?
A, no one interacts with them.
Yeah.
And B, the shading just looks a little off.
Oh,
like, they look...
Interesting.
Like, the cars were, like, too perfect.
Okay.
And the chrome almost looked a little matte.
Could have
where,
been.
Like,
could have been.
I was just, like, looking at that, and I was like, I think they just added cars from the game.
Mm-hmm. Lightning McQueen was in there.
Yeah, and Tow Mater.
Ka-chow!
God. Which is funny because Cars 2 takes place in Japan. Well, part of it's in Japan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's a crossover episode.
That's right. Exactly. Ka-chow.
Yeah. But I think the movie ended in a good way. Overall, I think I really genuinely enjoyed the movie. And I just had such low expectations. I think that played into it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I liked it a lot.
I think it would have been cool if at the end of the movie, like the guy who was being a jerk on the gold LeMay Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Like it'd be cool if he like got into his car and it's like quiet and it's the middle of the night and he's out in front of his house and he pushes the button to start the car and it blows up. That would have been great. That would have been awesome. He would have then got his just desserts.
Yeah.
Actually, no. It was... I think it was really great because that's truly what would happen. He'd be just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
That he lost the race. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But
it's very true to like what would actually happen. If, like,
yeah, it wasn't
or like it would have been nice if like you saw him. It would be cool if it ended at like Best Buy and he's like buying a PlayStation 5 or something like that. Like just to. It's funny because the reigning F1 world champion Max Verstappen.
Never mind.
Well, I'm coming around to as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
He just had his private jet fitted to have a sim rig in the back so he can drive virtually and race cars in the back of his private jet while he's going to the races.
Yeah, he needs to relax because he's won enough.
Yeah.
He's won,
This season of Formula One is going to be terrifying, but
why?
So their new car for this year is like seconds faster than their old car.
Seconds faster?
Well, yeah, and
that's amazing.
They were like a second and a half ahead of everyone during testing.
Yeah.
And then allegedly someone said that the car was in low power mode for the testing. That they were just trying to like figure out all the bugs and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're saying that his car was in low power mode and destroying everyone. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. First race is on Saturday, so
okay.
we'll see,
well, that will be interesting to see. It's kind of like, it's kind of like in a movie where you go, okay, the good guy or the guy's always winning. That's boring. To me, that's really boring.
No, it is, and that's what everyone's complaining about right now with F1 is that last season, all things considered, was pretty boring.
Well, it's like, oh, what a shocker. He won again. I mean, come on. Again, okay, smash cut to he's outside of the house at night. It's dark. He pushes the button. I mean,
it's a great scene from The Dark Knight where,
that's
folder,
right.
Yeah,
it is.
He goes, hey, this folder will tell you where you're going. It's everything you need to know. You got to get in the car and you got to go.
Yeah.
And then I think it's two guys get in the car, right?
No, I think it's actually like a judge or a woman or something.
Yeah.
Like she gets into the...
And she opens up the folder and it just says up. And then the car explodes.
Yeah.
Which the timing of that is crazy.
Right.
I don't know guy must have been like, did she open it yet? Like, what if she checked her phone first?
Right. He's
Although
like,
2008 is probably a flip phone.
wow. Yeah. So she got in the car and she's like checking the mirror. She's putting on some makeup and he's like, come on.
Yeah.
I got to
Or
push
the
the button.
Godfather.
Yeah.
Is it the Godfather where the car blows up?
There's a lot of
I mean,
movies.
so many, yeah.
There's so many movies where the car. That's why I'm saying it's funny as a trope to say.
Well, I think it's the Godfather one where it like clearly switches to a dummy.
Yeah, there's a couple. I'm trying to remember. Oh, also in the James Bond movie, there's For Your Eyes Only. There's a scene where there's a guy who tries to unlock the car, James Bond's car, which is, I believe, a Lotus, and
the Lotus Esprit.
Yes, the Lotus Esprit. He goes to open it up, and it says car alarm on it, and he goes to open it up, and he blows up, and it is absolutely a mannequin because the way it falls is not the way a human would fall. So
we can re-edit the ending of the movie. We can like get some Matchbox cars and some M80s out, and I'm sure we have a little GTR. I might have a Lamborghini Huracan.
Was that a Huracan?
Yeah, because I drove a Huracan once before, and then
I
think I bought like a toy car after that.
So like a Lamborghini, does that actually have like a push button start?
Oh yeah.
Okay, all right.
Pretty much 99.9% of cars all have push button starts now.
Okay.
The Lamborghini is cool because there's a little cover on it.
Oh.
And it's in the center of the car, and it's a red cover, and you flip it up, and then you hit it. But Lamborghini owners were getting pissed off about this.
Yeah.
So the new covers have like a little hole in it. So you can press the start button through the cover, or you can flip it up and do that.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, it's like kind of a
come
cop-out.
on.
It's like, come on, just have some fun. You're buying a Lamborghini. Who cares?
Well,
But people were annoyed by it. But,
exactly, no. But there, like I say, one thing I have to say, and I don't know if it was just because I was tired or whatever, but at the point where there's the crash and you see his mom, and she's like, oh no. Her reaction really, for some reason, her reaction really like made me go, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And I'm like, dang it, don't you make me feel. Don't you make me feel. Don't you make me have emotions.
She's being married to the F1 team boss of...
Yeah.
She's probably seen...
Right.
There's a really, really adorable video online of Max won a race, obviously.
What a surprise!
But she's standing there, and she's holding her phone up, and she's pointing, and she's smiling and pointing to the camera of her phone, and then she takes a picture, like a total mom moment.
Oh.
She's like, I'll smile for my... And she's holding her phone. It's so cute.
Yeah.
But she's probably seen, like, Red Bull still has crap. Not as of recent, but... So she probably was pulling from experience of that, and she's a real mother in real life. So
and that is something that, as a parent, you fear.
Yeah.
More than probably anything else in life. And so when that happened, I was watching the movie and enjoying it and stuff. And I'm like, don't you make me feel? Don't you make me feel? And then I was like, my eyes actually welled up a bit because her reaction was so real to that. It was exactly like what my reaction would have been like if you were
I
in a race or
remember
something.
when my good friend Adam crashed in Spec Miata because we didn't see it. God, that was terrible. We didn't see him come around, and then the yellow flag got brought out, red flag got brought out, and we see the wrecker go out, which is the tow truck.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's Adam? Where the hell's Adam? Where's Adam? We jumped in the CX-5. I had your guys' CX-5.
Oh, you did?
Thank God, because the paddock is like grass with like gravel roads, like every 300 feet.
Okay.
And then you just like set up camp on either side of the road or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was driving the CX-5 as fast as I could across the like gravel. We like were jumping over these things.
Wow.
And we pull up because we saw his car like
was
in
that
the
the
trees.
CX-5?
No, it was the last CX-5.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, we got rid of that one with the lease. This was probably 2019.
Well, that was a good car, though. It was,
Yeah, but I almost got it airborne on these little
I'm sure.
things because I was like, all we saw was his car off in the trees, essentially, and a wheel on track.
Jeez.
So, like, his wheel had torn off. Basically, it's a thing where if you buy cheap hubs for the Miatas, unless you buy OEM Mazda Miata hubs, like wheel hubs, are like $400 or $500.
Okay.
But if you buy the knockoffs, they're like $30, $40.
What?
So we
Really?
just have a truck full of knockoffs, basically.
Right, I'm sure, yeah.
But it had heated up so much that basically it
Okay.
friction welded itself and then snapped.
Okay.
So
okay.
he got hit in his right rear, spun, dropped into the gravel, and that drop into the gravel
Yeah.
just ripped the wheel off.
Okay.
So the wheel still had, I think it was like the disc brake.
Oh my gosh,
it had
really?
like taken everything off
Wow.
with it.
Wow.
But getting to the point, I understand that like immediate feeling of
Yeah.
like, and you're just staring at this car in
Right.
the woods,
Yeah.
missing a wheel, and you're like,
Yeah.
did it roll?
Yeah.
Did it, like, is he okay? You
Yeah.
don't see him moving. We
Yeah.
didn't have comms at the time, so like we didn't know if he was
It's a
talking. And he was
terrible
totally
feeling.
fine. He
Yeah.
literally just, we watched the in-car footage. He literally spun around
Yeah.
and then just slid like a sled through the grass and into the trees. Luckily, didn't hit any trees.
Yeah, well, that's good.
But
So
I
you didn't jump in your chopper, the helicopter, and fly over
yeah,
there?
no, not quite.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is scary, and there's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. Whenever there is an accident, yeah, there's no two ways about it. That it's just
Yeah.
like you lose your breath. You're like, oh my gosh, and because it's that not knowing, it's that oh my gosh, it's what's going on.
And
So,
I
yeah.
think the final point I want to bring up before we get into the trivia is I think I have a very good understanding of how the main character was feeling throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Because I have a job where I make YouTube videos.
Yep.
And the whole movie, the parents are very skeptical.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And you and Mom have always been supportive,
Yep,
of course.
yep,
But I
yep.
think there have definitely been those moments where I started actually getting paychecks, and you guys were like, "Oh, this is a real thing."
Sure.
And then, when the press cars started showing
Oh,
up
yeah,
outside, it's like, oh, like, this is something where I'm sure there were times, we don't have to get into it, I'm sure there were times of like, what is this kid doing? Just wasting time making these videos. And,
Just like in the movie, I would open the door and go, "You need to have a real life."
Yeah, well, like,
no,
like up until, Mom used to still send me job offerings for a long time, and she was
yeah.
like, you should, like, oh, this place is hiring, and I'd
Yeah.
have to say like, no, like, this is going to be my job. It's not making money now,
Yeah.
but it will. And
that was the hard part.
yeah, and I
that
totally,
area was,
I
yeah.
totally get that, and I understand where the main character was coming from of like, I just need to hunker down, and like, it's not working out
Yeah.
now, but it will.
Yeah.
And it's hard to express that of like, I'm going to make money at this 5 years from now.
I know,
Like,
it's hard.
hard to share that vision. And also, I mean, like, I was already making some money on YouTube, which was
Yeah.
easier.
No, that's
It's
fair.
hard to say, like, oh, I'm playing video games. Because he didn't even know the contest existed.
Right.
So that's, like,
Yes,
a little
exactly,
bit less
yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
But it was interesting watching all of this, and, like even now I go to, like, I go to press events, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm involved
Oh, yeah.
with the companies and such, and I still get questions of, like, oh, YouTube is, like, a full-time thing? You
Yeah.
can do that? And I
Yeah.
have to go, yes, it's my full-time job. I'm making good money from it.
It's
and
it
just
is
that
hard.
explanation, like, I, like, totally felt where he was coming from.
It is hard. It is very. I'm sure it's very difficult for you, and I'm sure you could be very empathetic
Well, and just
to his
the
character.
older generation too of like Hopper's character of
Yeah.
like, you guys play video games all
Right.
day, and like the scrutiny
It's a little
he was
different
giving,
in the real world.
well, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the scrutiny that he was giving, like,
That's not
I
a good
have-
Hopper imitation, by the way. But yeah,
I've received so much from like legacy automakers and like
Mm-hmm.
going into dealerships of like and asking to film their cars and whatnot. It's they're like, oh, like, this is just for your like little YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, yes, it's also the website where you can just find random cat videos and 2-minute.
well,
that's the
and
thing,
that's
is
the
that
thing,
like
yeah.
anyone can post a YouTube
Yep.
video, so then it sort of gets written off.
right.
And it's interesting because I've kind of come out on the other side of this.
Yep.
Because I was recently at the auto show,
Mm-hmm.
and I met a very, very well done. He makes great videos, but he's a TikToker.
Oh.
And we were talking, and he has like 600, 700,000 followers.
Jeez.
He's huge
Wow.
on TikTok.
Okay.
But it was funny because he was talking to me, and he was like, I wish, like, I want to break into YouTube because I feel like that's so much more legit. Like, I hate telling people that I'm a TikToker.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's weird to be on the other side now of like, because I hear someone makes TikToks and I'm like, yeah, the TikToks. It's those girls dancing videos and
aren't TikToks very short? Like
they're under a minute. So like the money on TikTok is not there.
Okay.
I mean, because
I have no idea.
I get 1 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's like $5-6 grand a month if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
1 million views on TikTok is like $30-$40.
Really?
Yeah. Because it can garner views so much quicker.
That's true.
Have you used TikTok?
No, never.
Okay. So basically, you remember Vine?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just Vine, but the videos can be up to a minute.
Okay.
So like, you can look at 10 TikToks in 20 seconds.
Okay.
So if you get a view is worth a lot less on TikTok because, someone sitting there for an hour can watch 5 YouTube videos, but can probably watch over 100 TikToks.
Okay.
So it's just a lot of shorter form content.
It's just.
But yeah. So I just associated a lot with that part of the movie of like that sort of struggle and trying to explain to people like I have a vision, but it's so frustrating to like tell people that vision and have all the questions that come up with that.
Well, and we always knew that you had the ability to do it. We always knew that you could do it. We just couldn't see into the future to say.
Right, and it's a brave, and like I said, you guys have never been not supportive.
Yeah.
But it's a brave new world, and it's very unique, and so that was cool to see that in this movie. And, and sort of feel that representation of that sort of thing. So
yeah,
I do have some trivia written down.
All right, good.
Not a whole lot as we're nearing the hour mark.
All right.
Let me see. Oh, they used a Joji song in the movie at the
Joji.
bonfire. He's my favorite artist.
The
music choice in this movie was great.
Yeah,
very modern
cool.
music.
Yeah, very cool.
Which like I feel like a lot of movies, especially like party movies, are still using like 2011 like Black Eyed Peas. Like
that's
I Got
true.
a Feeling. Like it had very modern music in it, which was nice.
I got a feeling.
We talked about Ginger Spice. We talked about Will Buxton. I thought the sim racers were way too good looking.
Oh, yes. I did want to say, and okay.
I was like, there's not one sim racer that's like heavily overweight.
I didn't want to say it, but
yeah. I was like, all right.
When they brought it, you're right. When they brought in the sim racers and they were all like emaciatingly thin.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he in
Craig,
real life,
42 from New York, you know.
Well, he himself is very, very thin.
Yeah.
So that's fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
But like, I wish, that there was a more heavy person.
Yeah.
Because
with the glass, actually.
But like, sorry,
it's very much a real thing though. Like, of grinding the hours and someone who's a lot more analytical. Normally, I mean, with sim racing, you see a lot more people who are like very analytical and very fact based, and it would have been funny if they had a guy in there that modded the game or like hacked it or something. Like his car was floating and like clipping through things. Like this guy had an 8-second lap. And like you just see his floating character, not even in a car, or something.
It's like,
or if they want to be realistic, you can change like the paint jobs of your car, and you can do custom paint jobs. What you end up seeing in the video games all the time is people like do really pixelated drawings of like naked girls or like phallic drawings on the cars.
Yeah,
be like, oh, this guy won, and his car is just a GTR with a giant phallic thing on the front. A little bit more realistic.
That would be really hilarious.
Yeah, just get called every name in the book.
I don't know if they had more like, if there were more games like this where, I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, it used to be, the for lack of better terms, the shit talking on Xbox Live back in the day used to be top level.
Really?
I mean, it was just the most grotesque, meanest, most racist things you've ever heard was in an open lobby. So I would have loved to just like, they added like, fuck, something like that. Or a common one was like, because with Xbox at least, you could message it would show you your most recent like 50 players that you matched with, even if they were complete strangers.
Yeah.
You could find your most recents, and people would message people like, "My dad's friends with Bill Gates. He's gonna ban your account," like because Bill Gates owned Microsoft.
Yeah.
Just like that, it would not have made sense at all.
So
in the movie, but
I think they should do the same movie, but about Minecraft. So
Yeah.
somehow
or just other like there's a whole community of speed running.
speed running.
Yeah, so it's basically taking a video game or playing a video game and just trying to complete it as fast as humanly possible.
Oh, okay.
So like
okay,
people
all right, yeah.
speed run Halo 3 on legendary mode, which
Really?
it's 8 missions. I mean, it took me probably like 12 hours to beat the whole game.
Yeah.
People have done it in like 4.5 hours. And there's an art to it of like, oh, there's like, if you pick up this gun and shoot it here, it's going to drop.
Okay.
And it's like literally trying to do it. It all started off with Mario, like side-scrolling
really?
Super Mario.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you perfectly time your jumps, you can double jump over stuff.
Okay,
And you
yeah.
can complete a level in like
Gotcha.
30 seconds as opposed to 2 minutes.
You know what I want to see?
What?
Duck hunt.
Speed running duck hunt.
Did you see? You know the dog and the ducks. You know the shooting
Was
the
it
ducks.
College Humor that did a duck hunt? They did like a realistic duck hunt like spoof.
Did they?
Sketch, yeah.
Oh, because that would. I mean, that was the tip. That was the amazing.
Yeah.
You remember that where
They
you had
also
the gun, the orange gun, and you would shoot
Was
the
it
ducks
Buck
in the air.
Hunt that they did too? And it's
Oh,
like,
there was a-
oh, you shot a doe. Her belly's warm, and then it like gave them like a orange knife, and they had to cut the belly open
no.
to save the newborn deer.
Oh my
And they're like,
gosh.
this is way too realistic for a
This is-
bar game.
No, this is that's so gross.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah. Anyway.
No, I know. There's so many. Hubert, I think, is the next one that
Yeah.
needs to be done.
So we do have some
Dr.
trivia brought to you by, but in no way sponsored by IMDb.
Yeah.
Pulled,
Yes.
just directly copied and pasted. By the way, I just got an iCloud account for the first time ever.
iCloud. Okay.
And so now it seamlessly syncs my notes between my computer and my phone,
Oh.
which is like a godsend.
Okay,
Anyway,
that's cool. That's nice.
Jan Mattenborough, who
Yeah.
the main character is,
Yeah.
the actual guy played the stunt double of the main
Yes.
actor, and he did most of the driving for the movie, which was cool.
Okay, so that is one thing I did want to add. At the end of the movie, they showed the actual people and the characters.
Yeah.
And that was a very cool.
I love it when
additional thing.
movies do that.
I do too. I think that's such a great thing because you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's real.
Yeah.
And these people are real.
Yeah.
Now Hopper's character, I don't think they did. Like they didn't show.
I
him
don't
with
think there was a real version of him
of
because
Hopper, yeah.
I kept finding trivia of like, oh, this person's based on this. This
Yes.
person's based on this.
Yes.
I didn't find one for David Harbour's character.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So
yeah.
anyway, one of the other significant VFX challenges faced was that while many tracks featured in the film are accurate tracks, their production was not going to be able to film at Le Mans for the 24 hours of Le Mans race. This meant that no filming, scanning, or photography could occur at the location. Instead, visual effects would create Le Mans based off of racing footage filmed in Hungary and additional CG builds. So they never actually filmed at Le Mans.
Wow.
Which is wild because it looks so accurate. Because
Yes.
the first chicanes, like I've played the game, well, I've played it in Forza a lot. The first chicanes, I'm like, oh yeah, that is Le Mans. They did a really good job. The GT Academy is supposed to take place at Silverstone in the UK.
Yeah.
It actually, they filmed it at Hungary, and you can tell by the grandstands and stuff. They
Oh,
look
really? Yeah.
different.
Okay. That's very interesting though that they weren't at Le Mans because that
It
really
looked really
looked
good,
so
yeah.
real and so
Yeah.
good.
Michelin is the official tire partner of the film and provided all of the necessary rubber, which can now be seen on the big screen with Pilot Sport 4S and Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires, all on the cars. I just want to point that out because I've driven cars with Pilot Sport Cups, and they're very good tires.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah, the 911 GT3 RS I drove had those tires on it, and that thing's on rails, so I thought that was cool.
That's cool.
This is Neil Blomkamp's fourth film released by Sony Pictures following District 9, Elysium, and Chappie. Furthermore, this is the second film directed by Blomkamp's released under Sony's Columbia Pictures label. So I didn't realize I had heard of all of those, and they all have a very similar vibe.
Yeah.
Of like mixing a lot of CGI
Yeah.
and like in a interesting way. Because District 9, which
Yeah.
I think is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
And that's aliens are like kind of stuck here. It's a very realistic look at what aliens, if they came here, would kind of be like.
Yeah, I have not. I've seen bits and pieces. I haven't seen the whole movie, but everything I've seen has been really. I want to watch that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to watch that. I think it's a good movie.
Chappie, which is the futuristic fighting robot.
Yeah.
I think it's Hugh Jackman in it, and then Elysium.
Okay,
is a movie. Do you know what that movie is about?
No.
Elysium.
No.
It's starring Matt Damon. And basically all of the rich people have gone up to live in this artificial space station.
Oh, right. Yes.
And everyone is trying to get up there. They're trying to get there. Past. The funny thing and the coolest, I haven't seen Elysium, but I remember seeing clips, is that it's a post-apocalyptic world on the surface of Earth, and so there's all these post-apocalyptic cars, and the main character, Matt Damon, drives this like post-apocalyptic, like ratted out, kitted out Nissan GTR. And at the time, GTRs were brand new. Yeah. So to see one like cut up with like big tires put on it and like Mad Max like exterior roll cage put onto it, I remember as a kid, I was like, that was so cool. Yeah. To see like a futuristic torn up GTR when they were brand new at the time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I didn't know that he did all that stuff. Yeah. Last one I had was that Yamaguchi, who created Gran Turismo, has a cameo as the sushi chef in Japan. So. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. I didn't know if they actually used him because you see that character in the movie, and Jan is like bowing to him, and when he gets to meet him, he's this is a big deal. I didn't know if that was the real guy. I didn't know if it was an actor, but again, I like when they actually put the real people in the movie as cameos. I also like at the end when they actually show the real people and they show, the characters that played them, and it's always fun too when like the characters. When the characters are on set and the real people are on set with them. That's a cool thing to do too.
And it's cool that they worked with not only Nissan as a partner, like they didn't have to like make up a car thing to like use, which would have sucked if it was like very clearly a GTR with the badges removed and like Starline motors or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool in that they actually had elements from the game. They used the real start sound from the game. And it was cool that the intro, they were showing how the video game is made. They had I think it was I guess over there would be a Honda NSX, like on a dyno. Oh, and they were capturing the exhaust notes and all that stuff.
And they were digitally scanning. Yeah. They were doing the laser scan of the different parts of the car.
So that was cool. I don't want to call that fan service, but like you are a part or if you're a big fan of the games, you'd be like, oh, like that's so cool to add in there.
I wish I had a laser scanner to be able to like scan objects and stuff because I've done the 3D printing and I've done the 3D stuff in Blender and stuff. And it's so cool to be able to have that data and not have to build something from scratch, to be able to do that. I wish I had that. But that was very cool. Yeah. And it was, like you said, it was kind of more realistic. Like, okay, there's a lot that goes into it. And you can see how precise and detailed everything was. And they were getting that point across. So, I thought that was really cool. Yep.
So, our ending question always of would you change the channel?
You know what? I wouldn't. At first... If before watching the movie, I would say, I'm not interested. Yeah. But now, I would probably watch it. I would probably, I would not change the channel.
I don't know. I wouldn't change the channel. I don't know if I'd sit down and like lock in.
Yeah.
Depending on the scene, maybe. But like I said, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
It's a long.
Especially if it came on TV. I mean, with commercials, you're looking at like 4 hours.
Well, and it's a very rare movie for me. I know we always ask about this, but it's a very rare movie for me that I would want to sit down and watch it again. Especially the whole movie. That's a really, really rare one. There's only a couple movies in my life that I would like to, watch it or I would. But again, that's the reason why we say, would you change the channel? Is because, I'm making dinner or something. I'm not going to change the channel. If it's on, I'd keep it on. I'd definitely keep it on this movie because I think it's really cool. They did a lot of really great stuff. Kudos to them. I love the little tiny details like the mirror being broken off the car on both the race car and his dad's car. And kind of that callback between the sim life and the real life, where like he has the the steering wheel that he locks in, you know, in his room.
Yeah.
And then there's the one when he gets into the actual race car and he locks in the steering. And they don't call it out. It's not like, hey, look at me. I've got this steering wheel now and I'm putting it in the car.
It's just visual cues, which is nice.
Yeah, which is it's a great way to do it. So you would.
Yeah, I wouldn't change the channel. But like I said, I don't think I'd sit down.
You wouldn't lock in, yeah.
Just because it is so long.
Yeah.
And I kind of got the point. It really beat all of my expectations.
Yeah.
I guess I just had low expectations for it, which was, I guess, probably the proper way to set it.
I had terrible expectations for it.
Because video game movies always suck.
Yeah.
Apparently Five Nights at Freddy's sort of changed that, which is a horror movie, which I don't think there's any cars in, so I don't think we'll cover it.
No, but
I'd like to watch it at some point.
Yeah, I would too. Is it still at theaters? I don't know if it's still.
Oh, no. That was like last summer.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's streaming now.
Yeah, probably.
Speaking of which, I think our next movie should be, I believe it's called Race for Glory. It came out in January.
Oh, okay. That's not the one that we got at the dollar store.
No, it's not the one we got at the dollar store. The reason I say it,
but
I believe it's the story of the rallying battle between Audi and Lancia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which, I just drove a Lancia Delta Integrale Evo 2. So I have Lancia on the brain right now.
Okay.
And I will be ordering a Lancia body for my RC car probably tonight.
Okay.
But it's starring David Brühl. I'm trying to think of what you would know him from.
I'm sure
you know what? He plays Niki Lauda in Rush.
Oh.
Yeah. I really like him as an actor.
All right. Yeah. All right. Okay.
I don't know a whole. Yeah.
And I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting movie. I believe it's streaming. I can send you the info later.
Okay.
But everyone's saying it's like the Ford versus Ferrari for rallying.
Okay.
So I haven't heard any reviews of it. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I think that should be our next one. So.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. And then someday we'll do the dollar store.
Yeah, we do. I think we have a couple dollar store.
Yeah, I think we do. And now that we have everything hooked up again, we can actually watch it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know, but I think it would be kind of fun to do that. So definitely lots more to do. And,
but check us out on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you get podcasts, YouTube, all that stuff. And we'll see you next time.
All right, bye-bye.